passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver, Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're saving the world, wait for it, one ohm at a time. So this is the first Thursday of the month, and I always said, and like every first Thursday of the month, we have our returning co-host. But we've missed the last couple of months' Thursdays. So I can't say every first Thursday of the month, but most Thursdays of the month, first Thursday of the month, we are joined by a dapper young man known as Matt Connarton. Matt Connarton has his own Monday through Friday drive time show on WMNH. And you can listen to it if you're not in the Manchester, New Hampshire area. You can listen to it on Connarton.com or IPMNation.com, where, you know, it used to be where he spent a lot of time tearing apart the politics of the day, claims to be neither a liberal or a conservative, but one of those, you know, in between, can't make up his mind people. But I think he swayed a little over the years. And he now has really, last time I talked to him, has blown his show out, and it's probably half politics and half music. Is that fair, Matt? Is that what's still going on there on Matt Connarton Unleashed?
I'd say probably more like maybe 2/3 still politics and a third music. A lot more music than we used to do, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good.
So, like we used to have in-studio musical guests maybe 2 or 3 times a month. Now it's more like 2 or 3 times a week.
So, and it's a 2-hour show, so you have 10 hours of airtime every week to fill. So, yeah, that's good.
No, it's been really successful with the increase in the musical guests. The feedback across the board has just been incredible. Yeah, people are really digging it. It's a good balance, and it's good for me. It's good for my mental health. I love politics, but the music is like because when we have musical guests, it's always in the second hour. So that's like a palate cleanser, you know?
Yeah, you got to do something to wash that horrible taste out of your mouth of talking about politics for an hour.
Yeah.
So now, I just want to remind our listeners, this is a live call-in show. So as Matt and I kind of dig into the cycles of what's been going on over the last 2 or 3 months, Matt, because we haven't talked for a while, and I'd like to get your view on a few different things as our local political expert. But it is a live call-in show, so you can call in at 202-570-7057, 202-570-7057. And you can ask Matt or I any conversations or questions you'd like. We just ask that you make them respectful. Because if you're not respectful, that's why we have the hang up button. So, Matt, to you. First of all, how are you doing? You're talking about mental health, and you've been very open on your social media pages that you struggle at times. How are you doing these days?
Doing okay. Summer is a better time for me. I think I think the increase in sunlight is helpful to me, and also I like the warm weather. I'm not particularly bothered by heat. A dry heat's always better, but I can handle humidity pretty well. Although Jenny keeps it nice and cool in the apartment. She likes to run the air conditioning. But, yeah, so, you know, doing okay, you know, staying busy. This week so normally I'm calling you from the radio station right after I get off the air, but this week we're on our summer break. It's only for a week, so we're just running best ofs this week. So I'm actually calling you from a parking lot because I was on my way back from seeing a client, hypnotherapy client, and running a little late coming back. So I was like, yeah, I'll just pull into this Target and call into the show from here. So I'm actually in the parking lot of Target in Hooksett, New Hampshire right now talking to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense that you just finished with a hypnotherapist client because, isn't there like a target involved in hypnotherapy that you're supposed to try to hit or something?
That's kind of a tortured analogy, but I suppose, sure. But yes, I should mention too, if I can just give myself a shameless plug, we've installed a brand new booking system at at mattconnarton.com for booking sessions with me. I do them virtually, or if you're within 30 minutes of Manchester, New Hampshire, I will go to you. And we also, this is something new too, Dr. Kevin, because it has been a couple of months since we've talked on the show. I'm also now doing sessions at Birchwood Salon in Hooksett, New Hampshire, which is a wonderful place. So there's some options there, but we've got a whole new booking system up at mattconnerton.com, and it works splendidly, and it's very, very user friendly. So, but I know you have listeners, probably all over the world. So wherever you are, one of the few good things about the pandemic, because we have to find these silver linings where we can, is people got used to doing things like therapy and doctor visits and hypnotherapy. In my case, people got used to doing that virtually online using platforms like Doxy.me, for example. And you probably see a lot of clients online, I would imagine, don't you?
Well, I have for quite a while, even pre-pandemic, had a lot of phone clients, and it's really interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's what I thought.
Yeah, I do a lot of phone clients. I've always done. There was the time back in the early 90s and then again in the early 2000s where I had a physical location and a center and people did work out of it and people
I remember
see me. Yeah. But and then I did another center in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I've had centers a few times through the years, but right now, and the pandemic just really put it into perspective for me. If I need a place that I want to teach a class, there's plenty of places I can rent space or people that will host me. And I frankly don't want all that overhead.
Right.
And I don't want to have to worry about having to get other people in to help offset the cost. And at one point, I was so busy and I had two spaces. I had one in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one in Portland, Maine. And, and I was going back and forth and I always had full days at both of them. But, then I needed to find somebody to take my spaces on the days I weren't in that location or they were just sitting empty.
Right.
And so, it is kind of a new way. This way of doing business, I don't do a lot of it on the internet. I do a lot of it on the phone.
Okay.
And occasionally some people will say to me, they'll be like, well, could we do a Zoom? And I'm like, we can do a Zoom. I prefer to do phone because I move around a lot. If I'm not sitting if I'm not sitting with you and connected with your energy in the same room, then I tend to be up and around and I'm moving a lot. And as you know, I've said before, on a busy client day, I might walk 8 or 10 miles. I'm just out walking in the woods.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. Huh.
Yeah. So I just I'm walking right now. I usually am walking when we do the show. It's a great way to have the energy flow. And, because one of my areas of specialty is ADD and ADHD. I'm on all the other stuff. A lot of my ADD clients really get that. And they're sometimes walking on the other end of the phone while I'm working with them.
Right.
They're like, this works for me. So.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing is because I have clients all over the U.S. and in Europe. and so of course they're not, they're not going to be flying in from the UK or France or Switzerland to do an in-person office appointment with me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so that all kind of works. I mean, I'm glad that's working on your system, because it feels like there was a while there where the hypnotherapy kind of took a back seat to the Matt Connarton radio persona. And I'm glad that you're bringing that back up in a more viable way. I think it's a good balance for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's also more lucrative. It's, radio, unless you're, I think Howard Stern took all the money and there's none left over. So, you know what I mean? There's always the financial concerns. But no, I love all of it, though. I'm fortunate in that I love, I love radio. I love doing hypnotherapy. It's all good. So, and sometimes the two mix. Sometimes I have clients I meet in the music industry who want to quit smoking or want to be just more confident on stage or whatever it is. There's a lot of crossover, which is nice. But I don't go out into the woods, so I do it all. I do it all online. I don't go into the woods. There's deer ticks. There's mountain lions. I think the Blair Witch is out in the woods. That's frightening to me. So no, I stay safe and sound.
Yeah, if you're gonna live a life in fear, why bother? I understand. I mean, I try not to make too many stupid decisions, but I'm also kind of sort of like, look, I have said for a long time, and I know you've heard me say this, but I haven't said it to you for a while. If I have a gravestone, which I don't even know if I want one, but if I do have a gravestone, on my gravestone, I want it to say he died living.
Yeah.
That's it. He died living.
Yeah.
I've said, because dementia runs in my family.
Oh.
And I see my 87-year-old mother, who is, on the one-way track into nursing home in memory care. And, sometimes she still remembers me sometimes, and sometimes she doesn't remember me at all.
Oh,
and
that's hard.
Her father went through it, and her sisters went through it. She had two of her sisters that went through it. And she said to me, before she ended up going in, before, everything really got triggered, when my stepdad, who was her husband for 50 years, died. And then that, she was already showing the signs, but he was kind of hiding it from us. He wasn't letting us know that he was kind of just covering for her, and they lived in Florida, and we only saw them, we talked to them on the phone and, and stuff like that. But one of the times before he died, I was down there, we drove by a memory care unit, and like a memory care specialty home down. I mean, they're all over Florida. I think it's one of the reasons why the political situation got so bad, because they can't remember the jackass move that DeSantis made last week, so they vote for him again. But anyways, but she pointed it out to me, and she said, that's where I'm headed. And I said, okay. And she goes, when I no longer know who you are, I don't want you to come back.
Oh, wow.
Because she had that experience of, she was in her early 30s, and she was the baby of the family, and she was daddy's little girl, like the spoiled last child. And she was in her early 30s when he stopped knowing who she was. And I don't think she ever recovered from it. And then same thing happened to two of her sisters. So she was like, yep. When I no longer know who you are, don't come back. Just make sure I'm taken care of. And I was like, okay. But, she still has moments, so I still go. But but I keep that in mind. So I always say, if it's clear that I'm following my mother's family or not my father's family on this issue, I said, you get me to the point where I can know that the mine's going away and it's not going to come back. I'm like, it's a bottle of champagne and skydiving. Make sure that those straps are cut when I jump.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
I want to pop a bottle, be drinking champagne, and be splatting and have it all done. I have no fear of death. I have no fear of where I'm going. I don't have any deviant, perverted God that wants to punish me with an eternity of roasting my marshmallows.
Good.
Yeah, all that shit. You can have it.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. I've been having lots of, what are they called? Coming home to Jesus meeting about religious nutcases on the shows a lot lately.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the disgusting amount of indoctrination that happens with these nutcase religions.
Mm-hmm.
Not the middle of the road. Hey, that's your way to God. Great, you go on it, honey. It's your path. You live it. The nutcases.
Yeah.
Who twist everything around, cherry pick what they want to do.
Oh yeah.
You remember when I used to call them? There were the Bible bullies. As soon as Christ got off the cross, they broke it into 4 equal pieces of wood, used them as bats to beat people with.
Yeah.
And I've just had it. I mean, I'm watching these people take power, and it's scary. The last time I saw, and you can verify this, all of these book bannings going on generated out of 11 people who created packets of exactly how to go into your school and get these books banned.
Yeah.
And then they work through fascist groups like Christian Nationalism, fascist group. It's not Christian. Moms for Liberty, fascist group, not Christian. Okay. And I'm not Christian. I'm proud of the fact. Oh, dear God, don't give me that disease. I have enough challenges in this lifetime without getting stuck with Christianity.
It's remarkable to me I remember being a kid and, in the 80s, seeing news stories about book bannings. And at that time thinking, wow, this sounds like something from another time, like from the 50s or something. This is happening now. And I was thinking that then, and now here it is, 2023, and they're banning books. It's wild. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. But I take every opportunity I can to call them out for what they are. In fact, my thing is, I really, the Christians made this mess. They should friggin' clean it up themselves. There should be a Christian in action group of all Christians that are true Christians living a Christian life. That's their belief system, that are tired of having their Christ perverted and made as the ultimate bully and bad guy. And they're the ones that need to get it in front of all of these fundamentals' face and say, hey, back off. They should be marching in front of the drag branches, say, leave them alone. You're not being very Christian. Right. I think that you Christians made this mess. You need to clean these nutcases up and get them back in line.
Yeah. Well, my belief about organized religion is that it's generally, it has very little to do with God and much more to do with politics. Unfortunately, and that's what people use it, because that's what people use it for. They use it for politics. They don't use it, they don't use it for God. So, and it's, and I think it's always been that way. I had that figured out from a pretty young age. Like I know my dad would, I was raised Catholic, and I know my dad is frustrated with me. He would like me to go back to the church and whatnot, but I told him, I said, to me, organized religion, it's not about God, it's about politics. And and I don't agree with the politics that are being presented by organized religion. So,
and that's an interesting thing, Matt, because I would say it's about politics / power, because there's a lot of ways to have power outside of politics, and church uses all of them. Shame, humiliation, discrimination, people protecting or doing things. And it's so funny because some of the most racist things that go on while one good buddy Christian, screws over a BIPOC, black or person of color, which is like, they're all people of color. But anyways, being a good Christian to his other good Christian buddy and justifying that screwing over the BIPOC person or family is okay because they're supporting their good Christian brother. It's nauseating. And I'm going to call it out till the day I die, which is either a cranky old man or they'll knock me off next week and, it'll be over with. But anyways, so let's shift to why we have you on this show. I mean, I have you on the show because I enjoy talking to you and I enjoy the ways that you look and see the world, even when they're wrong. But what's been the hot topics for you these days? And I always like to hear what you think that people are not paying attention to as well. So at some point, what you think is a big story that no one's paying attention to, I'd definitely like you to address. But what's the general shakedown these days? What do you think's happening?
Oh, I don't know. It's there's always so much. There's always so much. It's hard to pick something. Like sometimes on my show, there's always so much. It's hard to pick something. Sometimes I just leave it to the audience. I intro the show and see what happens in the chat room. See what that first caller decides to say, and then we go from there. It's pretty spontaneous. It's there's always so much. There's Trump's never-ending legal problems. There's the war on trans people that seems to be going on in this country. Speaking of, people using religion for politics, there's, concerns about Biden as a candidate for re-election and, cocaine in the White House. Although I was already on summer break when that story broke. But, there's always so much. It's hard to pick something. If you want to fire something at me, I'll tell you what I think. I can't even pick something. There's so much.
Okay. So, first of all, before I throw something at you, I do want to put two things out.
Yeah.
One is, this is where I do like to point out that the religion that I'm involved with, which is an organized religion, is based on the principles, Unitarian Universalism, been around 2,000 years in some form or another. I mean, it goes way back, but that they have principles about how to treat people and how to treat the world and how to be in the world. And you can belong to that religion and be a Christian. You can be a Muslim. You can be a Buddhist. You can be Jewish. You can be an agnostic. You can be an atheist. You can be a humanist. We agree that these are the principles that one should be living their life in the world. And so I just always like to point that out to people, because God has spiritual abuse, people are just starting to recognize how intense and for how long spiritual abuse has not only been tolerated, but has been put up as an example of the good and godly way to do things, and so I think that we're going to see, I hope for the good of humanity, we see some of these religions that do not live any of the principles they espouse in actions. I want to see them collapse. I want to see them fall in on themselves. I want to see the people turn around and go, I've decided not to be stupid anymore, and turn around and walk away. Because everything you say disagrees with everything you say you believe. And so if we could get all of the hypocrite churches out of the way, you know, it wouldn't be quite so bad. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, on the first Thursday of the month, when you're doing your Thursday show, drop a hint that people can tune in and call in here if they didn't get to call in your show. I'd love to have more call-ins. We get them occasionally here, but I do whatever I can to try to get people to call in, and I love to have call-ins, but I don't know what it is. We just don't get them. I know we have people listening. Huh?
You know what I always say on my show, because I do that on when it's that time. I always I do promote that I'm going to be on, but I always tell people, if you're a listener of mine and you get to the end of my show and you say to yourself, "Oh my God, I need more Matt Connarton," there's a way you can get it, but you have to be willing to share me with Dr. Kevin for an hour, and then I tell them how they can find the show.
Well, I thank you for that. And I just would wish I could steal some of your call-ins. I'd return them the next morning, I promise.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to do is we have to talk about the big circus that's in town. Where are you thinking where all of the Trump stuff is? Walter Nalta today pleaded not guilty to the fact that they caught him on camera moving the boxes to hide them before the search came, before the lawyer came to get the things. Kind of sort of incriminating evidence. But anyways, so where are you standing on all of the Trump stuff at this point? What do you think? How is that going to unfold? What is your best guess?
Well, I still think he's going to be the nominee, no matter what. The more legal problems that pile up, the more money he raises, the more devout his followers become, the more they become convinced that it's all just, the deep state and the Democrats and the blood drinkers out to get him. And so he'll be the nominee. Even if he ends up in jail, he'll still be the nominee, no matter what. So we'll see. I mean, I also don't know. I mean, this case about the documents, I don't know if that's going to happen. If that's even, I know that Judge Eileen Cannon set a trial date of August, but obviously that'll get pushed back. There will be delays and continuances, and there's a lot of questions about whether she can be trusted to be impartial to begin with. So we'll see. I mean, I proceed through life just generally skeptical when it comes to the wealthy and powerful and the elite. And I know his supporters like to pretend that he's not a member of the elite, which of course he is. He's a billionaire. You don't get much more elite than Trump, right? Than a billionaire. We have a system in this country that generally doesn't like to hold the elite accountable for what they do. So I'm always skeptical that, when it seems like, this time they're really going to get him. They're definitely going to get him this time. I mean, it sure looks like it, because he's got so much going against him legally. It really does look like this time he's going to pay some sort of a price. But I'll believe it when I see it. But the sick thing is, because he's convinced his supporters, whom, he could tell them the sky is green, and they'd all go outside and look up and they'd go, "Oh, wow, I can't believe I never noticed it before. It is green." It's actually good for him. I mean, Maggie Haberman has been reporting that, from her sources, Trump is stressed out. He's worried about, nobody likes to be criminally indicted for things. But it's also good news for him, because these indictments, they bring in money. They get that gravy train rolling. By the way, he's a billionaire. I don't know why he needs all this money, but apparently he does, and it works. It's a very unique approach to a political campaign, and he's probably the only one who could pull it off. But yeah, the worse it goes for him legally, the better it is for him in terms of raising money. So he kind of can't lose in that respect. I mean, don't get me wrong, it makes him a horrendous general election candidate, but it makes him a phenomenal nominee. I mean, I'm more convinced than ever. And by the way, the polling data shows that he actually is more popular within the Republican Party as these indictments pile up. So he'll definitely be the nominee. I don't think he'll win the election, but at least I certainly hope not. But he'll be the nominee.
Well, he cannot win an election without some moderates. And if nothing else, all of this, I think, will lose him those moderates.
Yeah.
Independents. Okay, we'll be right back right after this break with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed right here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. I'm here today with Matt Connarton as we are kind of just browsing through the world and seeing what's going on. And Matt's bringing his Matt Connarton Unleashed expertise. You can listen to Matt Connarton Unleashed 4 to 6, Monday through Friday at WMNH FM. Or you can go to mattconnerton.com or IPMnation.com and tune in and be part of his chat, be part of his conversation as he divides his time between politics and presenting mostly local musicians. He tries to support the local arts, which I'm all about. As you may remember, Matt, I had a TV show for 2 years just doing nothing but supporting local arts and artists. So
yes.
I'm a big fan. Matt is also a talent. He's a talented hypnotherapist. And if you go to IPM Nation, you can see how you can book an in-person or a remote appointment. So,
well, actually, Dr. Kevin, if you go to mattconnerton.com, if you want to book an appointment. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
MattConnerton.com. It got the name said a few extra times. Hey. It was an intentional flip, just so I could say it more times. Now,
excellent.
Yes. And Matt can hypnotize you and make you think all politics is good and all politicians have your best interest at heart. That's how good he is. Right, Matt?
I'm not a magician.
Okay. So the Trump train moves on. You think he's still going to be up in general election? Christie is taking some big pot shots at him, but gotten a few points from directly attacking him and calling him out on his crap. And DeSantis seems to be kind of like a fish out of water, flopping all over the place. He's just been making some big mistakes, hasn't he?
I think people are beginning to view Ron DeSantis as a psychopath, which would make sense because I believe he is a psychopath. I understand he's trying to appeal to the hate, the really hateful part of the Republican Party, but I think he's gone so overboard with it that even even the people who really hate trans people are kind of like, yeah, okay, we hate trans people, but geez, dude, dial it back a little bit. I think he may have overplayed his hand. Chris Christie has been a lot of fun to watch, though. I don't trust Chris Christie because I've never believed that he didn't know anything about what was going on with Bridgegate. So I think he's lying about that. I think he's always been lying about that. I absolutely believe he knew. But I have to admit, I've always kind of liked the guy a little bit. Sometimes when he talks, I like to pretend he's a Sopranos character just for fun. And I like the way, obviously, of anybody in the Republican field, he's been the most aggressive in terms of attacking Trump, and I do enjoy that. And Eric Pilcher, who is, I call him my favorite conservative. He's a part of my show. We do a regular segment on Wednesdays, and he also does the classic film reviews on my show too. He has actually endorsed, and again, Eric's an evangelical conservative, but he has endorsed moderate Northeastern former governor Chris Christie for the Republican nomination, to the consternation of many of his peers in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. He has endorsed Chris Christie, so he's kind of fun to watch. But yeah, I think DeSantis is just he just seems like a lunatic. Like the thing about DeSantis, usually in politics, you try to bring people in, right? You've got your core base who's already with you, but then you try to bring more people in. You want to have you hear this phrase, big tent, want to have a big tent party. But DeSantis, I feel like he wants to keep his base small, like he actually, if you're anything approaching what he calls woke, whatever that's supposed to mean exactly, he actually doesn't want you. He doesn't want your vote. He hates you, and he'll tell you he hates you. I've never seen anything quite like it, and I think it's backfiring on him because as much as obviously some Republicans like that kind of thing, I think they recognize he will be a disastrous general election candidate if he's the nominee. How's that guy going to appeal to moderates and independents?
Yep. So where would you lay your money on the odds that you're even going to have a Republican debate? Because Trump is never going to sign the agreement that says he'll back whoever is chosen. Yeah. You're going to have Republican debates. I think the first one is in August, but Trump won't be there. And Trump, I agree with him on this. He says he sees no reason to be there, and I think he's right. When you're that far ahead in the polls and you look pretty untouchable, I refer to him on my show as the presumptive nominee. When you're that far ahead, there's just no reason. He said it. He said it to who was it? I forget who was interviewing him now. Oh, I think it was Brett Baer. He said, "Yeah, why should I? Why should I debate?" And I think he's right about that. He has nothing to gain from it. So there will be Republican debates. He just won't be a part of them. And if he's not a part of them, do they really count? What's well? I think they will be an opportunity for prospective vice presidential candidates to kind of show their stuff a little bit. Like Senator Tim Scott, for example. I've said regarding his candidacy on my show, I've said from the beginning, he's not running for president. He's running for vice president. He knows he's not going to be the Republican nominee. He's not an idiot. But he knows he does have a shot at being the VP. So he's going to continue to avoid criticizing Trump directly, and he might get picked for VP. So that's another reason to run. Nikki Haley, she's actually been a little bit critical of Trump, so she might not be playing that game. Obviously, Chris Christie knows he's not going to be VP, and neither is Asa Hutchinson, and neither is who else was I? Ron DeSantis. Well, DeSantis, yeah, probably not DeSantis. Although I don't know, who knows what goes on in his head.
But I think Tim Scott definitely is running to be Veep. I think what's his name? I forgot his name now. The mayor of is it Miami, who's running? I think he might be running for Veep. Again, he doesn't want to criticize Trump directly. Mike Pence was the other one I was thinking of. Mike Pence obviously knows he's not going to be Trump's Veep again, nor will he be the nominee. I think Mike Pence has a book to sell. There's other reasons to run for president other than wanting to be president. Maybe you want to be vice president. Maybe you have a book to sell. Maybe you just want to raise your profile for when you run in 4 years when Trump is out of the way. There's plenty of other reasons to run. But Tim Scott, I think, is a particular example of someone who clearly is running for the vice presidency.
So DeSantis will be on the stage. Pence will be on the stage. So everybody's going to be there, and then Trump is going to sit there and ridicule them all when it's done.
Yeah, he skipped. He's skipped debates before. In 2016, he skipped at least one of the Republican debates, and in 2020, if you remember, we always get 3 presidential debates, but we only got 2 in 2020 because Trump backed out of one of them because he wouldn't agree to the rules or something for the second debate. So he just backed out and held a rally instead. So, he's not afraid to skip them if he sees he has nothing to lose by skipping them.
So, Biden. What's going on with Biden?
Joe Biden is... Oh, go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say there's only 2 years difference between Biden and Trump. So how Biden can be too old and Trump cannot be too old is just, that crazy thinking. But go ahead.
Biden, in my view, is selfish. Joe Biden should not be running for a second term. He should. There are other. Gavin Newsom, I think, would be a fantastic candidate, for example. And he turned a lot of heads in that interview where he was on with Hannity on Fox. So people are really looking at Gavin Newsom. Biden. Now, part of it is my own. I have a kind of a unique perspective on Biden. This is how I look at him. I wanted Joe Biden to be president because we were in the throes of a terrible pandemic, and we needed somebody who would be serious and consistent about it, which and would be determined to do what had to be done, getting vaccines distributed and so forth, and would be consistent in messaging. And we weren't getting that from Trump, but I knew we'd get it from Biden, and we did. So the number one most important thing that I wanted out of Joe Biden, I got it. We got it. Great. And there's other things too. There are some things I would critique. There are some things I think I would give him great credit for. But no, he should not be running for a second term. And him running for a second term, if he, if there's more incidents of him falling down on stage or confusing, you were talking about dementia earlier, or confusing Ukraine with Iraq when he's making comments or what. Some of it's hard to know. He's always been gaffe prone. That's part of that is just Biden being Biden. But, sometimes he seems, to some extent, it's just a matter of energy. Sometimes he seems really energetic and lucid and with it, and you wouldn't guess he was 80 years old. And other times he seems like he needs a nap. I think he's a terrible candidate for a second term. And polling data shows most registered Democrats agree. And there's also polling data that shows 70% of the country across the political spectrum, 70% of the country doesn't want either Biden or Trump in the 2020 election. So President Biden, I think.
2024.
2024. That's what I meant. Yeah, sorry. So President Biden, thank you for getting us through the pandemic. Fantastic job, and I mean that sincerely, and doing some other good things. And, and I think he deserves a lot of credit, by the way, for his handling of the situation with Ukraine. That balancing act of supporting Ukraine, getting Ukraine the munitions they need to continue to try to fend off Russia, and giving them a real shot at success without going too far and getting us into a nuclear war. That's a very difficult tightrope, and he's walking it. And we haven't gotten into a nuclear war. And so I give him great credit for that. So I don't want to sound like I'm just dumping on Biden, but he should not be running for a second term. And that's my view. And I think he's selfish to do so. And I think he should put the country first and step aside and let somebody else have a crack at it. Because if Trump ends up beating Biden, I understand people assume Biden beat Trump once, he can do it again. But all it's going to take is for something to happen with Biden that really gets people nervous. Maybe a string of incidents where he's falling down or he's confusing things or whatever. And people are going to really get worried. And Trump, for all his faults, he doesn't show any signs of physical frailty that I can see, and he doesn't show any signs that he's any less competent than he was in 2020, right? I mean, to the extent that he was competent to begin with. You know what I mean? So I'm worried. I'm worried that Biden's presence could actually throw the election into Trump, and it's time for somebody younger and more energetic to get in there, in my view.
And unfortunately, I don't see Harris being a winning candidate.
No, there's a lot of antipathy toward her. Some of it I think is not fair. Some of it I do understand. She's got a weird habit of laughing in very strange moments where it's like, what is she doing? That doesn't make sense. And there's been a couple of those. And sometimes that's, unfortunately, the way people's memories work and the way they think about these things. It only takes a couple of incidents like that to cement an impression in people's minds that that's how she is all the time, which isn't fair. But, yeah, there's a lot of antipathy toward her. So again, a lot of it I think is overstated and overblown. And by the way, there is time for her to rebound from that. She is the logical choice, being the current vice president, but I think Gavin Newsom would be a phenomenal general election candidate. I really do.
Well, yeah. And he's doing very quiet things which are positioning him to step in that position if Biden says, I've decided not to run.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, I mean, barring some sort of health crisis, I don't think Biden's going to say that. But I do think Newsom is setting himself up for 2028. I think he's got 2028 on his radar.
My dream team would be, that something happens, and I don't want to say something happens to Biden that takes him out of the election, but something happens that Biden goes, yep, this is not a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really think that I look at the dream team could be Newsom and Pete.
Yeah, I know you're very, very fond of Pete Buttigieg.
And I think that if Pete got some years in as vice president, the next time he ran for president, he would be golden. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's done some good stuff as Secretary of Transportation, and he gets down in it, and he holds his own every time he's interviewed, even when it's by hostile interviewers. I mean, he does well.
He seems to be I've noticed this, he seems to kind of be the go-to Biden administration official to go on Fox and defend Biden's policies, and he's very adept at doing that. To be the one to have to go to Fox to do that, he seems to be the go-to guy for that, and he's very good. He's very good at that. He knows what he's doing in terms of talking and presenting things. Very sharp.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, but I know what you're saying about Newsom, and I do, you know, he's out there, so we could only hope, because, I mean, the worst thing that in the world that could happen would be that Trump stumbles into getting reelected.
It's a real possibility.
You know, and I just wish somebody could talk to Biden and go, look, you're going out on a high note. Like, you have established your legacy. You know, his time in the Senate, 8 years as VP, and now 4 years as a president. This is the time to take your bow. You know?
Yeah.
But we'll see. Because I don't know that this country, I mean, Trump repeatedly lists his revenge list if he gets elected. I don't have great hope for this country if Trump got into office for 4 more years, the amount of damage he could do. Especially with this kangaroo court in the Supreme Court.
Well, Asa Hutchinson, to his credit, and by the way, Asa Hutchinson, I have trouble with his name, former governor of Arkansas and very conservative. I probably don't agree with him on much, but to his credit, I think he's been very good at pointing out that, and this was, I believe, he presented it as the main impetus for him getting in, is that Trump talks about, you know, being vindictive. And it seems as though he just wants to get back into the presidency, aside from, you know, trying to maybe it'll help him with his legal issues. Like, he just wants to get revenge on everybody. He just wants to get back in there for vindication, and that's not a good reason to. I forget exactly how Asa Hutchinson put it. He said something about the politics of vindictiveness or something, but I forget exactly how he said it. But it was very good. It was spot on, and that's what he points out. That's why Trump wants the presidency, to get back at his enemies, not for the country, not for the good of the American people, not to be a leader, to get back at his enemies. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, except for a lot of people that have drank the Trump Kool-Aid feel like somehow Trump getting in even with his enemies is a win for them.
Right. Well, because Trump is very good at doing the inclusion thing. Oh, they're not just after me. They're after all of us. They hate all of us. And they fall for it. They absolutely fall for it. They'll believe like I said earlier, they'll believe anything he tells them.
Well, I think that there is a lot more that's going to happen between now and that general election, and we're going to have to kind of hold on tight and see where it goes. But you are still pretty like, no one is going to unseat Trump, and Biden would only go away at Biden's choice.
Yes, that is what I believe. We're getting a Trump-Biden rematch that nobody wants, but that's what we're getting. Congratulations, America! We've done it again.
So, do you think that anything is going to come about with all of the corruption that's coming out of the Supreme Court? Are they being beyond touch, or do you think that if we got a full Democratic Congress, that they might take the Supreme Court on?
No, I don't think anyone has the stomach to take them on, and no, I don't think. Look, none of it surprises me. I've never understood. I did an entire segment on my show about this. I've never understood why people think that the Supreme Court is any different from the other two branches of government. You know, why they think the judicial branch is somehow above it all, just because they're not elected by the people, and you know, like the executive and the legislative branch. They're part of the elite. You don't get much more elite than a Supreme Court justice, and they don't care. That's why they're so arrogant about it. That's why they get caught and they don't care. That's why Justice Clarence Thomas, you know, he couldn't care less what you think. I don't believe John Roberts. People, you know, all this hand wringing about, oh, Chief Justice John Roberts, he's got a, you know, he's probably very concerned about repairing the how people perceive the Supreme Court. I'm telling you, he doesn't care. I don't believe for a second John Roberts cares. I've never believed for a second in my life that the Supreme Court really is above it all. They are not. They're just as capable of being just as corrupt as anybody else.
Well, Matt, we'll see how the world is changed in 4 weeks. Thanks for joining me. Give my best to Jenny.
I will.
And you take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of this warm, moist air and sunshine.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye.